Okay, so we're good to start. Welcome everybody to the third session in the Learning for Lawyers Redefined series. I'm really excited that you're all here with us today for what is one of the unique sessions in this series, and that I'm really pleased to bring to you, for reasons that will become clear as we go through. I said the project was going to be redefined, and what I mean by that is, whilst professional skills are really important when you're trying to aspire for a career in law, what's also really, really important, perhaps more important, is really developing yourself. And what I'm hoping to do through this kind of stream of the sessions is to really allow you all to really think about ways that you can grow and develop yourself, rather than just the focus on the professional skills. And there needs to be a balance between the two. So I'm delighted to bring you this session today, which is, as you've seen, called Advocating My Success, Tips and Tricks to Being Your Own Best Advocate. And we're really, really lucky to have Lulu Minns with us here today. And I'll give you more of an introduction to Lulu in just a second. Before I do that, I just wanted to give a brief introduction or overview as to, first of all, I guess, why I've brought you this type of session as part of the series, and just to help you understand the context of this session within your wider learning and your wider development in your journeys to being lawyers. So as you'll see from the slide, I've phrased it as personal development versus professional development. So we spend a lot of time in our kind of journey to being lawyers to make sure we've got the best CV, the best cover letter, the best application, that we get these interviews. It's all about getting training contracts, summer vacation schemes, mini pupilages, and the list goes on. But what we don't really do in that journey is spend enough time really focusing on ourselves. And that kind of sounds maybe a bit weird, because how often do we kind of take time out in a week and really just sit down with ourselves and reflect on who we are, who we want to be, what are our strengths, what are our areas of kind of spaces we want to develop in? And I really think that if there was more of an emphasis on those kinds of areas earlier on in our journeys, it would actually shape our journeys into law and, in fact, your journey when you're in the profession. And as somebody who has obviously been in the profession for some time now, I realised that this emphasis was imbalanced quite late, and the coaching aspect of things, the emphasis on personal development, is all stuff that I found later on in my kind of journey. And I do genuinely think that if there was more of an emphasis on this kind of work at universities, or even earlier actually, that it would really help us not only identify what we really want to be doing and why we want to be doing it, it would really help give people that focus that they need. So rather than bashing out a million training contract applications or bashing out a million pupillage applications, really just being honest to yourself about why is it that you're pursuing this path, what do you hope to get from it, why are you doing it, and just ensuring that when you kind of embark on that journey, it's a continuous process of growth, but in yourself first. And what you will find, in my experience, is if you are the best version of yourself that you can be at any given time, you will find that you will do much better in interviews, in your CVs, in your applications, because you just have a much stronger sense of who you are and what you're about. You can be in an interview and be fantastic academically on paper and have a million mini pupilages or whatever it might be. But if you don't have that strength of character and conviction in just who you are, that self-confidence, self-belief is not going to be conveyed. And as a lawyer, these are things that we all need. So that's a bit of context about why I've brought you this session. I'm really, really pleased that through this session, I've been able to, with you guys, support an amazing organisation called Women for Refugee Women. And through all of your donations, we've raised, actually, it's in excess of £128 because we had some late people that joined. So I just wanted to really thank you all, first of all, for joining us today, but also taking part in this opportunity to support such organisations. And again, it's something that I want to reiterate the importance of, because as lawyers or aspiring lawyers, a massive part of what we do is kind of this pro bono spirit. And I think if that's something that you can begin to nurture and develop even as a student, it will put you in really good stead because pro bono is something that, again, for your careers in law, for your applications, all of that looks great. So I'm really pleased with that amount, and I'm really grateful to you all. And I won't take up too much time because you've already seen this, but this is just a summary of where your donations will be going. The charity is running a specific campaign at the moment, supporting people in the kind of era of the pandemic. And feel free again to have a look at their website, and just know that your donations hopefully will be going to a really worthwhile project in supporting people. So I'm going to stop talking, and on that note, I'm going to introduce Lulu and tell you a little bit more about her before I hand it over. So Lulu is the founder of the She Rebel radio podcast and is an award-winning coach and expert guiding women on freedom from prestige to more meaning and significance. Lulu helps women leaders to embody their transformations, own their personal power, and create peak experiences through self-actualization. Prior to coaching and advocating for women leaders, Lulu was a criminal law solicitor and court litigator for over 11 years before leaving as head of department to start her own business. So what we've got here is somebody that's got both sides of the coin and no doubt has lots of valuable insights to share with us all today. So thank you, Lulu, for being here. And I'm going to stop presenting and pass over to you.
Lovely. Thank you. Thanks so much, Zinat, for inviting me and the introduction there. I am going to share some slides with you, and do forgive me because my usual platform, whilst I've spent 5 years using video platforms, and I know with the pandemic and things that we're facing at the moment, people are catching up. I usually use Zoom, so I might be a little bit slower with this, but I'm going to share some slides with you, and hopefully, I know I need to wave my cursor to see. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen. 1 second, I'm just going to pull up the slides here. They haven't disappeared. Which they have disappeared. 1 second, I'm going to do that in a minute. But first of all, what I'm going to ask you to do is to set your intentions for why it is that you've signed up to this session today and contributed to the Refuge for Women. And I'm going to ask you some specific questions around that. Is what would you like to learn today? What would you like to learn? And why do you think it's important to become an advocate for your own success, which is the title of this training? So hopefully you've all got a pen and paper there. Take a few notes, and then I'm going to ask for you to share in the chat box anything that you've written down. And it could be a word, it could be a sentence. Don't overthink it, just see what comes up. So what would you like to learn today, and why you think it's important to become an advocate for your own success? And whilst you're doing that, it was my intention anyway to ask you to do that. I'm going to find my slides, which I've seemed to have disappeared, and then we're going to share in the chat box. So I'm going to give 2 minutes. Okay. And Zinat, can I just ask, is there a way that I can show the slides and see the chat box at the same time?
There should be. Is it not allowing you just to have your screen in the middle of the screen and then have the chat box on the right hand side?
No.
So when you present, what does it do? Like take up your whole screen?
Yeah. Yeah, if I want to show the slides, it's not kind of in the middle.
Yeah. That's a bit odd. Unless you want to email them to me and then I can present them for you and then you'll see the chat box. Are you operating on 2 screens or just a laptop?
Just a laptop.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'll toggle between. It just means a bit of toggling between, but then and everybody's seeing me do that with the chat box. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry. So I would love for you to share in the chat box below what it is that you'd like to learn today and why you think it's important to become your own best advocate. And it can be a word, as I said, it can be a sentence. And this session is going to work so much better if we share, particularly when we've all been stuck at home, not sharing and not communicating. So I would love some interaction from you as to what is it that you want to learn today, and because that will help me really guide and direct this to help you even deeper. Thank you, Joanna, so much for sharing. I struggle to give myself honest praise, and I'm worried that this will hold me back as an advocate for others. I want to start increasing my skills and confidence in this. Amazing. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you for having the confidence to share that is something that you are experiencing, and this training is going to help you do that. And we're going to have time for questions at the end and some interaction throughout for you to work on individual things as we work through, but it's just really helpful that we can wire back to this. I would like to know how to show my experiences in the best light. That's great. I want to build my self-confidence. Lovely. Anything else that you want to learn? And the second question, why you think it's important that you become your own best advocate. Whilst I'm sharing that here, I would love to share with you, as Zinat has shared there, I came to personal development much later, after I left the profession. So I'd lost my why in the legal profession, and had I been doing the personal development work, etc., before things got to that point, had I been introduced to the concepts that I'm going to share with you during this training much earlier in my profession, as Zinat had said, then it may not have got to the situation for me where I wanted to leave the profession and start my own business. Now, that was my journey. That is why I do what I do. But very interestingly, as some of you were jumping online, Zina and I were talking about why we entered the profession, or what areas of law. I was in criminal defence. That was always my focus, to practice criminal law and be in criminal defence. And I, so much so that before I did the law conversion, I did the graduate diploma in law, I studied criminology and sociology, because my interest has always been in human behaviour, how we actually work together as a group, and what makes us do the things that we do, be that to commit criminal offences or to become successful and fully self-actualise and enter positions of prestige, etc. But what was missing from that 5 years of education that I spent studying human behaviour and why we do what we do, is actually studying myself and becoming very interested in why I do what I do, and why I may lack confidence in certain areas and things like that. So it was a massive, massive missing part of my learning. And I'm just going to share some more with you, because we've got lots of comments coming in, which is great. Thank you so much for sharing. And I know, sometimes it can be that you're in a group and there can be some reluctance to share. HR has said experiences are important, and as someone who's gone through a lot of struggles with family, how can I use them to show my strength in wanting to advocate? Brilliant. That's really helpful. Thank you. Emmanuel gives you a competitive advantage. N has said, I'd like to learn how to improve my confidence as a young female and learn to be my own best advocate. Brilliant. I want to reach my full potential, and I hope this will help me improve my confidence and be useful to take forward into life and my career. So I can see the word confidence is coming up a lot, and potentially, particularly for women, as I work with women, that is something that I work with them frequently on, so this is going to help massively. Tam said, for me, I think it's important to become my own best advocate, because I can feel the difference when I'm feeling confident. yeah, you can feel that difference and understand the strength and knowledge I have. And when I don't express this, I think it would really inspire others to believe in me. Really important. It's a real critical skill as a lawyer, as an advocate for others, that they believe in you. Really important. And my advice, because I'm self-assured, absolutely. I think that sometimes being a woman of colour, I often hold myself back in a room. Thank you so much for sharing, Tam. I would like to, Etta is saying, I would like to confidently talk about my skills and achievements. It's important for me to be able to advocate my own success because I'm the only person who knows the true extent of it. Yes, there is so much power in that. I'm the only person who knows the true extent of it. Absolutely. Emily said, law is such a competitive field to enter and it can sometimes be negative. It's important to have your own back. Yes, Emily, absolutely. It's so important. So I'm going to share with you my screen and we'll come back to the comments in a minute. Zinat, can you see that? Can you see?
Yeah, we can see them.
Brilliant, thank you. So as we've just dived into why advocate for your own success, and you've given some incredible answers there. The first one, being a better advocate for others, that self-assuredness, them believing in your vision of how it is that you're going to solve the case or move forward with the case with them is so, so important. And I have a saying in coaching that you can only take clients as deep as you've gone yourself, i.e. for myself as a coach, I do the internal work consistently and constantly, because then I can take my clients deeper with their own self-actualization, their own advocating for their own success journey. And that is true when you are advocating for others as well, because that self-assuredness, that self-confidence speaks volumes when you are doing that work, and people are putting a lot of trust in you when you are being an advocate for them, and that's as a lawyer or as a coach. That is a skill that I have transitioned from being a lawyer into a coach, is that level of trust that people have for me to take them through whatever journey that I need to take them through. So when you do that work, that deepens your advocacy skills, which we shared in the chat box. So that's really, really important. As Zinat said, personal development is as important as professional development. And we've touched upon already, it's absolutely critical in today's market when you are training and wanting to enter into the legal profession. I'm not sure what the statistics were when and I'm trying to remember what year I entered the legal profession now. I think it was 2003 when I started. I finished my criminology and sociology degree, and I got some work experience in a criminal law firm back in Sussex, where I'm from. I studied up in Manchester. I was doing the graduate diploma in law, and I actually stayed at the same firm for that full 11 years. And I'm not sure what the statistics were. The last time I checked in terms of the legal profession, I'm going to ask you to change some of your mindset around this. But the facts, the reality as they remain, is there's 1 in 4 jobs for students going through bar school or the legal practice course, etc. So within that, personal development can really give you the competitive edge and advantage over the other candidates. And with the legal profession or any career choice or starting your own business, which is what I did, is 20% skill set and 80% mindset. 20% skill set and 80% mindset. And that's the Pareto principle of the 80-20 rule, that actually it's far more weighted in the mindset and the beliefs that you have about things and what you think about is so, so powerful. And for me, when I left the legal profession with a very vague business idea, I realized how critical that mindset piece was and how that was lacking for me, because I've been so plugged into the skill set for the 11 years, and I was still trying to build a business from a space of that skill set without the mindset. And had I been working on my own personal mindset throughout that 11 years, adding on the other 3 or 4 years of training within university, etc., even longer than that really, had I been working on that, I would have found myself in a much better position as well to pivot, because the mindset, the personal development work you do is not only going to help you in the legal profession, it's going to help you within your personal life, your family, your personal relationships. And if you ever choose to pivot and do something else, you take that mindset with you, and you take the skill set as well. But the mindset, that personal stuff on you, is something that you are always going to have as a strength. So it's super, super important. And Einstein, I always love an Einstein quote, because I love to say that nobody argues with Einstein. It's always something where people, a quote by Einstein always makes people think. And this is kind of a segment of a quote from Einstein that is, the rational mind is a faithful servant. And the rational mind is a faithful servant. And I know when we're training to become lawyers and in the legal profession, there can be a lot of being ruled by the mind. And there is another quote by a more spiritual person called Oso, who says, the mind is a dangerous master, but a faithful servant. And the interpretation of that, and you may have your own interpretation of that, and do share in the chat box below, is my interpretation of this is that the mind being a faithful servant means that the mind needs to be trained. The mind needs to be trained as something to support us rather than being the lead in our lives all of the time. Because if you have a servant or you have someone helping you to do something, you need to train that person in how, it's for me, when I used to train and mentor younger people in the legal profession within our firm, I would need to train that person in how they could support me in my job with what they were doing, and how they could also learn at the same time. So it's really important that we train the mind, but often the mind actually dictates the path that we're taking and the thoughts that we're having, which can become extremely unhelpful. And the older you get, the more unhelpful it becomes. And there's a reason for that. And I'm going to share a bit more with you around that. And I'm just going to check, has anyone got any other comments about the, I'm going to do that in a minute, about the quote there. But the rational mind is a faithful servant. And the reason I wanted to share that with you is because mindset, it's a term that is much more accessible now. It's much more out there now. But what does it actually mean? And what it means is training the mind to work for you as your servant, not as your leader. Tony Robbins, who's a very famous coach, I don't know if any of you are familiar with his work. He's the most famous coach in the world, but he's got a saying of, the mind is 2 million years old. It's not designed to make you happy. And happiness is really important in your career, in your personal life. It's not designed to make you happy, which again is another indication that you have to train the mind to work for you and support the things that you want to do that make you happy. And I've got some emails popping up. Yeah, all of that. So in part one of this training, and do let me know in the comments, because I will come back to those comments, so please keep using that chat box and interacting with each other as well. Is anyone familiar with the saying that thoughts become things? Thoughts become things. And I became super interested and really curious about how thoughts become things. This was when I'd left the legal profession and I had started my own business. I was a little bit skeptical about how thoughts become things. And I'd spent 11 years working in prisons and courtrooms and with people that had created a reality for themselves that was far less than desirable. And I had always been obsessed with finding out about how and why people create these scenarios or find themselves in these really, undesirable situations where they're facing life imprisonment. I represent a lot of lifers on parole and all of those things, and finding themselves, and actually quite often my old clients would say to me, you know, they'd be super grateful for a result that I'd achieved for them. And I actually represented people for, you know, over a period of years when they were in and out of the criminal justice system. And they would really struggle to get out of that system. And I could see the desire, if you like, for them, that this was the last time. They would say to me, this is the last time that I am going to need your services again. And then sometimes within weeks or months, they would be back at the police station, back with the same scenario. And this is really interesting because their thoughts, as with all of us, our thoughts are becoming things. And when I got super curious about this and how thoughts can create our reality, that the mind that needs training, that if it's untrained, creates a reality that we don't actually want to experience, which was the experience of my old clients. How often are we doing that ourselves in our day-to-day? And I would love to ask you, and I really am going to check the chat box in a minute, and then I'm going to take you through this diagram, is how many thoughts do you think that you have per day? And that can be you as an individual person, or just in general. How many thoughts do you think people have in one particular day? That's my first question. And my second question is, what are repeated thoughts? What are repeated thoughts? And what could be the impact of those repeated thoughts? But focus on the first two questions. How many thoughts do you have a day? And what are repeated thoughts? And we're then going to share some answers, and then I'm going to take you through that diagram that is there. Let me just go into the chat box, and excuse me, forgive me for toggling between the technology. Okay, so how many thoughts? Throw me a number. Any number. Again, trust, don't overthink it. Just throw it out. Someone's got to start it. Zara's shared there, I've got an interview coming up and I've been out of practice for a few years. Okay, great. Self-confidence. Again, that self-confidence piece coming up, which we will dive into. We can have some questions about that. So how many thoughts do you have a day, and what are repeated thoughts? 10,000. Thank you, Zara. Well done for starting that off. 10,000. Anyone else? Higher or lower? 1,000. Alicia, thank you very much. 1,000,000. Zina, thank you. Yeah, some people have said if it's taking me, then I have more than most. If anyone, put your hands up if you're an overthinker. Millions, squillions. Yeah, lovely, lovely, brilliant. Okay, so it is between 70 to 80,000 thoughts per day. So quite a specific amount. That's as far as we science has measured. So 70 to 80,000 thoughts per day on average. Yeah, that's on average. So again, I got super curious about that. How is that possible? But it's literally every time your heart beats, thought, 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 thought. And again, you know, in the way that I work, again, looking back at those previous clients that I used to represent, and I represented, people with serious mental health problems, etc. That, you know, would be, and we've all seen people as well. Sorry, my emails are popping up. We've all seen people as well walking down the street, talking to themselves. The truth is, every single one of us is doing that all day long. Every single day. And now actually, because I work from home and I have been for the last 5 years, talking to myself, I talk to the cats, we're always talking to ourselves all day long. It's just that we have been socialized and conditioned to not talk in public to ourselves. But there is an internal narrative, excuse me, I'll have a sip of water, that we are playing, each and every one of us, every single day. So moving on to that second question, I'm going to build on that. What are repeated thoughts? Has anyone got any idea of what repeated thoughts are? And I'm going to share more with you about how those thoughts repeat. What are repeated thoughts? Any ideas? Thoughts you constantly have, something always on your mind. Overthinking, absolutely. Thoughts we focus on and dwell on, perhaps even constantly. Yes, Tam. A frame of mind, yes. Dwelling on fear, yeah, they can be fear-based for sure. What they are is beliefs. The thoughts you think consistently are your beliefs. So I'm going to share this with you here, this diagram here. So how many thoughts do we have per day? 70,000. Every time your heart beats, there's a thought. There's a thought, there's a thought, there's a thought. You're not aware of most of them because they are unconscious and subconscious. Repeated thoughts are beliefs. And in this diagram that you can see here, the mind is like an iceberg which is submerged in water. So the conscious mind, which is above the water, are the things that we're aware of. It's the actions that you take, it's the goals that you set, it's the behaviors that you're aware of, it's the decisions that you make that you are aware of. I would add the plans that you make, you know, all the plans that you have and the actions that you're taking to create your legal career, you know, that is in your conscious mind, which is roughly about 10% of the thoughts that we have that we are actually aware of, and the things that we're doing that we're aware of. So it's a very, very small percentage. It's about 10%. It's about the older you get. There's a guy called Joe Dispenza who's got a book called Breaking the Habit of Being You. When you're in your late 30s to early 40s, it's actually about 96 to 98% of everything you do is subconscious and things that you are not aware of. So again, people that we see potentially with mental health problems, alcohol problems, etc., notice how when they get into their 40s that they haven't addressed these issues, they become really, really serious, and actually things that are out of their control, because those repeated thoughts, the 70,000 thoughts that are really embedding that are actually coming from the beliefs, which is in the submerged, becomes almost involuntary. So well done for all being here and starting to understand and do this work when you're younger, because A, it's easier to change the thoughts, and B, it is going to serve you so powerfully to understand the things that you are thinking and feeling, which I'm going to take you through a little bit how to do that. But I wanted you to see that image there, and what's submerged in under the water there are a lot of our beliefs. So those repeated thoughts that become beliefs can dictate what it is that our thoughts are. And many of our beliefs get set between the ages of 4 and 8 years old. How shocking is that? Between 4 and 8 years old. And then that, where that comes from, somewhere that is unknown, it comes to the surface in the thoughts and then the actions, which I'm going to break that down for you a little bit more. But between the age of 4 and 8 years old. And there was a very good reason why. I'm the youngest of three girls. I've got 2 older sisters and lots of female cousins as well that were all older than me. And I was the last one, obviously, to find out that Father Christmas did not exist anymore, and I hate to break it to anyone on the call, etc. And that was, you know, and I was around 7 or 8 years old, and, you know, I think I was slightly aware, and I see it with my nephews and stuff, you know, my mum, you know, telling my older brothers and sisters not to kind of, you know, ruin it and allow me to be in that place. And the reason for that children, when we're around 8, we change our brain state. We come out from, I think it's a beta state to an alpha state of mind. So before that, we're like a sponge. We're soaking up what older people tell us and what we see. So it's not just what we're told, it's also what we see. We create, we decide that A plus B equals C, or we might decide it equals D, and that becomes quite a deep-rooted belief that then can dictate our thoughts at a later date. So it's really, really powerful. And let me just move on. I'll just check you haven't got any questions on that. So those repeated thoughts become our beliefs. So those repeated thoughts actually start at quite a young age, as I've said, and then that belief becomes quite rooted and embedded, which can be hard to change. As I said, the older you get, but totally possible. And I'm going to give you, within this training, it's going to be, it's about implementation. I'm not just going to share the academics of it with you. I'm going to give you some really powerful tools that you can start to get curious about this. So those repeated thoughts become beliefs. Repeated beliefs and emotions become attitudes. They become our attitudes. And an emotion, we can, and again, within the legal profession, can deem emotions to not be relevant. But actually, and I think one of you said in the comments there, when you're feeling this and when you're feeling that. Your emotion, we have an emotional code. Emotion is energy in motion. So our emotions actually give us an indication as to what it is that we're feeling, what it is that we're thinking about. So if we're thinking a good thought, we tend to feel good. If we're thinking a bad thought, we can even shut down our energy and tend to feel bad about stuff. And that is quite obvious to other human beings sometimes, even when it's not, and I used to notice that of my old clients, that they would potentially be shut off in their energy and fearful about certain things. But we're all doing that all the time. So it's really important. And that attitude, our attitudes are kind of like our repeated emotions, our energy, our energetic code that we put out there, and we invite things back into that, being that getting the training contract, not getting the training contract, and all of that stuff. And then our repeated behaviors, the beliefs, cause the emotions and the attitudes, which then cause the habits that we create, which are our repeated behaviors and our actions or inactions that we create. So we have the habits that, we learn. I'm just taking something really simple here. We learn from a young age because we're told, most of us, by our parents or our caregivers, that we need to brush our teeth. So that becomes a thought that we need to brush our teeth. It is instilled within us by our parents deliberately that we must brush our teeth. So we create a belief around that. Our attitude is that we must brush our teeth and it's hygienic to do that. And our habit actually becomes involuntary, that we, again, for most of us, that we just brush our teeth without even thinking about it. We can't even remember that we've done that. But there's all sorts of other things that are positive. There's positive ones that we create, and then there's negative things that we create. I will say one of the really positive beliefs that my parents instilled with me, in me, that it wasn't really money spent buying books. And I've always got that now. If ever I want anything, I can always buy books. And that was a real thought that my parents instilled within me. If we were on holiday or whatever, it wasn't really a present, it was a book. We could always have books. So that is a really, really positive belief. Is there any questions about that before we move on to the second step? I'm just going to check that. Are there any questions about thoughts become things and how that can happen? That they are beliefs, that they are embedded, and they are positive ones, and there's not so positive ones, and they create our emotions, which means we can bring things into our energetic field back, and our habits and behaviors, which can be actions and inactions. Okay, any questions? No? Okay, we will crack on. So, the second part of, so the first thing is being aware that your thoughts become things. Moving on to step 2 is getting curious about your thoughts. And as lawyers, as those training to be lawyers and wanting to be lawyers, you are naturally curious. I know that's why I wanted to be a lawyer. I like asking people questions. I still do that as a coach. I did that as a lawyer. I used to really enjoy cross-examination, asking people questions, finding things out about them, about human beings. So it's really, really important that you get curious with yourself. As I said, I wasn't so curious about myself. I thought I was pretty boring. But personal development is really about getting curious with yourself, about learning what your internal narrative is. And I love that Einstein said as well, I have no special talents. I'm only passionately curious. So he was a passionately curious man. And he was an incredible talent because he was so, so curious. So use your curiosity as a lawyer, as someone who's wanting to become a lawyer, to really get curious also about yourself. And when you learn your internal narrative, these thoughts that you're having, these 70,000 thoughts, what's really interesting is that you have playlists. I call them playlists. I'm a huge music fan. My dad is a musician. I've got all of my, music tunes. I've been doing more actually, putting soul and funk playlists together, etc. on Spotify. I've got my yoga and meditation. I'm into my yoga meditation. I've got my 90s songs, again, showing my age here. And I've got all these different categories of music that I add the songs to. And computers work in a very similar way. They are created as a very similar thing to the mind. The mind is a computer, and you reboot the mind, you reboot your computer, and the mind needs rebooting. It needs training, it needs cleaning, it needs all of that stuff. And you can put things into categories, which again is how your belief system works. So someone will say something to you about money and you will have a playlist. Someone will say something to you about relationships and you'll have a playlist. Someone will say something to you about the legal profession, you'll have a playlist, or career or employment, and you'll have a playlist. So someone will say something about you or confidence, and you will have a playlist and an internal narrative that you are playing to yourself, a small percentage of which you are aware of, and the majority of which you are not aware of those thoughts. So how can you become aware of those thoughts? We're going to dive into a little bit of that awareness here, but I'm also going to give you a tip of something that you can do post this training, and that is to track your thoughts. Track your thoughts. And that's not that you go around all day tracking those 70,000 thoughts, because you probably wouldn't have time for something else. But with whatever you've shared on this training so far, or something that you've noticed that you're potentially struggling with, that you're coming up against an obstacle with, is get curious about it. And, I'm just going to pull the example out of money here. So, if money is an issue for you right now, you could go, right, I'm going to track my thoughts about money for 3 days. That's my recommendation, is 3 days. Use your phone, your note-taking thing on your phone, or if you prefer carrying a notebook, carry a notebook. And then just notice every time somebody says money, or you go to the shop to spend money, or you buy an online course, or you contribute a pro bono amount for a free training, etc., what thoughts are coming up for me? And just write them down. And what's really interesting is there are around 7 to 10 central thoughts and sentences that you are saying. And it's really, really interesting. And the example I'm going to use for me, is one of my beliefs, one of my repeated thoughts was, it's too good to be true. Too good to be true. It's too good to be true. It's too good to be true. And I was playing that over and over and over and over and over again when I was tracking my thoughts. I thought, that's really interesting. That keeps on coming up for me. Keeps on coming up for me. A real tip as well to doing this is being present in the moment, which again, for me, when I left the legal profession, was quite an odd thing. I was like, being present in the moment. Well, what if I'm not present? What does that mean? And I heard something the other day which massively resonated. If you're not present in the moment, you're absent from the moment. And when you're absent from the moment, then those thoughts are having their playlist whilst you're not even aware of it, and creating those things, creating your reality. And as lawyers, trainee lawyers, for me, and Zina, you may resonate with this being present, being in the now, being here right now, compared to that's right here. The alternatives are the past and the future. And most of us actually spend time in the past or the future. As a lawyer, you spend even more time in the past and the future, because my clients would come to me, this is what's happened in the past, this is what someone said that I've done, and I constantly be creating damage limitation for their future. And what I forgot to do with those two things is be present to myself and my internal narrative and the reality that I was creating for myself. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments if that makes sense. I know it's quite deep stuff, but I think it's super important to share with you. And another real key part of this getting curious is being open, being really open to unlearning some of your thoughts and your beliefs and getting really curious about them. Getting really, really curious about what it is that you are thinking about with those 70,000 thoughts a day. Thank you, Tam, who said it makes a lot of sense and really insightful. Super interesting. Definitely resonate with that, especially need to be present and being stuck in everything but the present. Yeah, absolutely. It's, even, and that's why I'm a huge fan of meditation and yoga, because it's so it really reminds you to be in the present, even if it's just that 5 minutes a day. I quite often say just start doing it for 2 minutes a day, and then you learn to be more present. And what happens is when you learn to be more present, you become more aware and are able to observe and witness what it is that you are thinking, and you actually become less attached to the thoughts. You don't roll down the hill with them quite so quickly. And I sometimes call it my inner crazy town, particularly when running a business. I have to be present and I have to have a positive mindset. So I get super curious. Sometimes I write down what is it I'm fearful about today? What is it I'm fearful about today? And I write that down in my journal. And then I see what crazy is coming out, because a lot of it's not actually true. And then I write, what is it that I know for sure? So that's a great tip as well. What am I fearful about today? What am I worrying about today? On the left-hand side of a journal, and then on the opposite side, what do I know for sure? Is a really, really powerful mindset tip, because it's not about papering over everything with positivity. It's about really acknowledging the thoughts that are there, but then feeding in some new stuff as well. So what I would love to do, we have got time, is for you to pick a topic, something. It might be the thing that you've shared here of what you want to learn about. So it could be your confidence. I would love for you to just take 2 minutes to write down what some of your thoughts are about feeling confident, getting a training contract. What are some of your thoughts about the profession, for example, that there's no chance of getting one, there's too much competition, I'm not good enough, I'm not confident enough, I haven't got enough that's different about me to give, maybe I'm too different, etc. Really just write down what it is that you want to get curious about, and maybe a couple of your thoughts that are going with it. And then my advice would be to track your thoughts on this for 3 days and really see what's coming up and what you're sharing. And feel free. Oh, I'm going to give you 2 minutes first. I'm going to stop talking and give you 2 minutes. another 30 seconds. I'm then going to share some of the comments and then continue. Amazing. Thank you so much for all your incredible comments as well. Ross has said, yeah, experience with overthinking, constantly being stuck in what could happen rather than what is happening at the moment. Yeah, which is what I loved, and I literally only heard that this week. What's the opposite of presence? Is absence. We don't want to be absent from the moment, right? Absolutely. Tam, do you find that helps ground you? I think I said meditation, yoga. Yeah, absolutely. It's you know, so life-changing in so many ways, and it really helps you get super curious about that internal narrative. So yoga, meditation, journaling, if that's not for you, then journaling is really powerful, particularly when we scribe from hand rather than on computers and things like that. We tap into that subconscious mind, which I showed you, that submerging. And you think about it, when you were a kid, I don't know about you, I used to have diaries and things like that, and again, we're kind of trained out of that, and it's really, really powerful to, you know, write stuff down. So that's really powerful. And also coaching, support, mentoring, and talking to people, you know, about those things that are coming up for you. So presence is absolutely key to getting curious about those thoughts and not constantly distracting yourself. And I think, you know, it's incredible for your generation in terms of how open you are to this stuff and how accessible it is. You know, with technology and stuff, but also you do have technology. I quite often joke, I don't know how I would have got through my law exams had I had a smartphone. You know, I had a Nokia with playing Snake on it or whatever. That was the only thing that I could do to distract myself. That, you know, technology is massively distracting from being present. There's a lot of comparison and all of that. So, you know, I feel that's why, as well as many other reasons, that learning the art of presence and not being absent is so important. It's so important. Hassa, you've been writing down, yeah, your worries on one side, actions on the other. Brilliant. Worried I don't have a concrete path in my mind for my career. I have faith it will be clearer once I embark on it, but sometimes my confidence dips. I'd like to trust my gut more because I'm confident in the direction, even if the destination is unclear. Lovely. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you for sharing. And what I would love to share with you there as well, and I think I was going to say that at the outset and I didn't, I'm very much about, and again, the legal profession can sometimes have a real, it was actually a follow-on from what Zinat said at the beginning, can have a real focus on the destination, right? As you know, do the CVs, do all the applications, do all the exams, you know, get your training contract, blah, 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 blah. But what can happen sometimes is that people actually feel really disappointed when they get to the destination. So have fun and joy and presence in the journey, because the journey is what it's all about. And I actually live my life by that mantra. If I'm not having fun in my business, if I'm not enjoying the day-to-day, there's no freaking point. Don't get so caught up in the destination. And really checking in with yourself. Another journaling tool that you can use day-to-day to ensure that you are enjoying the journey is how do I want to feel today? How do I want to feel today? Most days I ask myself that question. How do I want to feel today? And sometimes it's like, I want to feel energetic. Sometimes it's like, I want to feel in flow. Sometimes I want to feel positive. I want to feel relaxed. And then I'm like, I need to go for a walk on the beach today. So how do I want to feel today? And what's the one thing I need to do to feel that way? So you might want to write that down. How do I want to feel today? What's the one thing I can do today to feel that way? So if I want to feel confident, today, what do I need to do to feel confident today? Is have that conversation with yourself. Usually write my worries down, constantly worried I'm missing opportunities. So yeah, lots of worrying here. Zinat said, I'm still not clear on my past 7 years in. I realise it's okay. Yeah, absolutely. Have joy in how it unfolds. Have joy, you know, particularly being an entrepreneur and a business owner, right? You really have to enjoy the journey and not the destination. The destination is not as glamorous as it seems. No, it's definitely not. It's really not. So, yeah, enjoy the moment. Right, so I'm going to go back to the slides. Thank you so much for sharing. Continue to get curious with yourself is really important. Number 3 is to find new facts. So when you've picked something that you're worrying about, that you've tuned in with those thoughts, you've tracked your thoughts, you're present with them, you start to learn what that internal narrative is, this worry, then this worry, this fear, this lack of confidence, then it's about finding new facts and asking yourself if it's true. Is that actually true? Has that actually happened? And find new facts. So a real tip for you here is to create your own fact sheet about whatever it is that you are working on. And if it's confidence, for example, create a confidence fact sheet. You know, again, this is something I probably would have poo-pooed in the legal profession, but again, running a business, I, you know, if I was like, oh, you know, I'm no good as a coach, well, who's going to want to work with me, blah, blah, blah. Just reading back through, you know, client testimonials and realizing the impact and the change that you make. So a confidence fact sheet, you know, all the things that you've achieved and done so far. And you can even, you know, you can even go and collect stuff that other people have said about you. Is really powerful, actually. I did that when I started my business. You know, what's one thing you've always admired about me? Go and ask people. Go and ask your parents. Go and ask your family. Only ask positive people, I might add. That's I'm going to add on that. But yeah, really create some things. So when you're having those bad days, etc., that you can find your fact sheet. You can check in with whether that's true. It's always about asking, is that true? Because what the mind does, which is why it needs training, is makes up stories and creates playlists with things. You know, oh, I didn't hear back. I sent my CV off to Chambers or that law firm and I didn't hear back from them. It means I'm not good enough. It means I'm never going to make it in this profession. It means, you know, where is it? Might have got lost in the post, although it's email now. It might have gone in the junk box by accident, or, you know, there could be so many different reasons, but your belief system can start to dictate what those reasons are, which are not true. The vast majority of the time, they are absolutely not true. So really check in, have an honest conversation with yourself, and it's about opening a dialogue with yourself. And part of this section of finding new facts is taking responsibility for your thoughts. As you take that responsibility for, you know, passing your exams, doing your revision, sending in those CVs, making those applications, if you take as much responsibility for your thoughts as you do for that, you will see such a leverage in your mindset and what it is that you're thinking. Another great saying that I love is have less tolerance for mind wandering. Have less tolerance for mind wandering. And it's about stopping the tire rolling down the hill, because thinking is addictive. Thoughts attract another thought, attract another thought, attract another thought. And then, you know, before you know it, the tires roll down the hill and you're in a real state of worry or lack of confidence that you're not good enough or any of that stuff. So when we can stop it in our tracks and go, oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm aware of this thought, and actually that's not true. I'm going to find these new facts. It's so important. And remembering that thinking is addictive. Take responsibility, have less tolerance for it, and train your mind. So here we've got the thoughts become things. We're getting curious. You're starting to that process is about unlearning the thoughts and the playlists that you have. It's about understanding what they are. You don't need to understand where they come from. Sometimes we do when we do deep coaching. That's really helpful, but you don't have to. You can just unlearn what they are. And as I said, an example of mine is too good to be true. It's too good to be true. Playing over. I would then have a conversation with myself. Is that true, that whatever's happened is too good to be true? But then the final piece here of what's really important, the unlearning, you find new facts, is that you then reprogram. You reprogram yourself as you would a computer to positive statements, affirmations, mantras, which are great as a standalone thing, but they are even more powerful when you create a positive statement, affirmation, or a mantra, which is a mind tool, they're all the same thing, pretty much, is that you create the opposite thought to what the negative one is. So when it's in direct, to use legal terms, kind of direct opposition to that negative thought that you had. So an example of that, it's too good to be true. It took me ages to replace that thought because it was so embedded and entrenched that I then, because I was committed to finding new facts to unsupport that. And then I reprogrammed, and my reprogram, which I still use now all the time whenever that thought pops up, it's not that it doesn't pop up, it does. I then replace it with all good things are true for me. All good things are true for me. And that's a real opposite of that particular thought. So that might not mean a lot to other people, but it does to me. And it changes my thought, it changes my emotion, it changes my habit and behavior that follows on from that. So it's great to have general positive statements and affirmations. We see them everywhere. They're quite big on social media. It really is good to get you in a good vibration that day. But actually, it's far more powerful when you flip yours to the opposite. And but within that, positive statements, positive psychology in general, when we train ourselves to become more positive, we become more solution focused. Because when we are in a negative frame of mind and negative thoughts are coming up, we actually take ourselves into fight or flight or freeze mode, which is like an instinctual response, fight or flight or freeze. The synaptic connections don't quite connect in the brain because it literally goes fight or flight. I can go that way or that way, which we used to do because we would need to escape from the grizzly bear or whatever was coming after us. It would put us in a sense of fear, fight or flight, and we can only do one of those two things. And we don't become solution focused. As a lawyer in the legal profession, we need to be solution focused. So a more general way you can reprogram is, by general positive statements, not necessarily in opposition of your curious thoughts. Daily gratitude, writing down 3 things you're grateful for every day is so simple. It is a real changer. Game changer across the board, because you will start to then scan for the positive, which again, imagine that for your clients when you're in the legal profession working with clients, how you can actually spin it around for them that this is the positive in your situation. Even if it's a really, really difficult situation, how can you pull out a little bit of light and a bit of positivity for them? Really important for people to have that trust and that belief in you that you're the right person to represent them, and that relationship is so important. A final part of the reprogramming is surrounding yourself with the right people. I call them people that radiate your energy rather than drain your energy. The people that you go share some aspiration with, and they totally trample all over it, and you wish you'd never opened your mouth and shared it with them. Spend less time with those people and more times with the people that totally radiate your energy and support it and bring you into a positive space. That is all part of the reprogramming as well. And I wanted to share with you why reprogramming is so important, and that you continue to do that. And you can do that by, when you find your real power statement that means a lot to you, like everything good is true for me, it's great to write it on Post-its, put it in your office or on your desk, in your study books, set reminders on your phone. I remember I had one go off on the tube in London. I was, what's going on my phone? And it was one of my positive statements, and it really made me smile. And it stops the train in its tracks, the 70,000 thoughts, and reminds you to go, I'm going to focus on that thought. And when I focus on that thought can become the thing. Because actually, when we think positively, it actually carries much more energetic weight than negative. But we are hardwired to think 3 times more negatively than we do positively. So it's about reprogramming. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is to write down, if you are ready, because I know this is a lot of information. If anything came up for you in the comments, with anything that you've been thinking about that hasn't been so helpful, what is an opposite reframe that might be? So my example being, it's too good to be true. Everything good is true for me is my opposite. And that's my power statement. That's my positive statement. That's the one that means a lot to me. So it could be, and because the reason I would love for you to do that is if you want any help with the reframe, we can do that within the questions. Because I know, and from working with clients, that actually the reframe can be really hard. Sometimes when you've got a thought that you have been thinking quite a lot over and over, is so what's the opposite of that? And it can feel really difficult to find that place. So if that is something that I can help you with, then I would love to do that. So let's just take 2 minutes and do that. And then we've got 20 minutes for questions, answers, things that you want to share. Okay, so just as a couple of examples, and if you would like any help with the reframe, then do write them down below. So just some examples. I'm missing out on opportunities. So that could be a thought. That's something that one of you shared. That could be a thought that you are thinking all day long. I'm missing out on opportunities. I'm missing out on opportunities. And then thoughts become things, right? So it's about how the reframe of that. And importantly, you can create a build-up positive statement or affirmation. Because if you don't believe something, your mind can still argue with you. So I'm missing out on opportunities. A reframe can be, I'm getting better and better at creating opportunities for myself. Feel the difference. I'm missing out on opportunities. I'm missing out on opportunities. I'm getting better and better at creating opportunities for myself. So that's a reframe for that. I don't have a concrete path. I don't know where my career is going. I don't have a concrete path. Again, I'm getting better and better at discovering my career path. I'm looking forward to how my career path is opening up for me. It's becoming clearer and clearer to me. That's it. My career path is becoming clearer and clearer to me. I hope that helps. I'm just going to share. Am I smart enough, able enough to achieve my goals? Will I be held back because of my background? Okay. I'm just thinking of a reframe around that. Am I smart enough? So I think HR would be creating a fact sheet around why it is that you are smart enough and able to achieve your goals. And again, what's really important here is about beliefs. Whilst they can be submerged, when we're aware of something, we get to choose what a new belief is. So, and just even writing that down and creating a mantra, I choose to believe that I am able to achieve my goals. I'm getting better and better at believing that I can achieve my goals. And I hear you with the background stuff, that might be a deeper conversation. But again, fact sheet, is that true? Where can you find people of a similar background to you that have achieved what it is that you want to achieve? So again, role models and people, and surrounding yourself with that is really important. Emmanuel, am I smart enough, able to achieve my goals? Again, similar, create that fact sheet, and some mantras around that. I hope that would have helped both of you. I don't have as much experience as other candidates to be chosen for the job. Okay, how can you focus on the experience that you do have, and what you can bring to the table? I could have done better. I could have done this better. I could have made better choices. Okay. There's a great, I love being 1% better than yesterday. I could have done better, but I was 1% better than yesterday. Again, it's about the journey. It's not about the destination. And I tell myself that within business, you know. Sometimes I read back on an email or blog or something that I'd written years ago, and I was like, God, that was bad. You know, that's my opinion of it now. Someone said to me when I built my first website, if you're not embarrassed by it, you know, I was proud of it at first, and then I look back, and it's about being 1% better than yesterday. I can be 1% better than yesterday. I choose to be 1% better than yesterday. Zinat, there's a couple more, but I wanted to.
Hello. I've been muted and listening to you and your wonderful session, which has been fantastic, and I'm sure everybody will agree with me. Thank you so much. I'm loving this live coaching on the Q&As though, so if you wanted to do the last couple, feel free, and then we can move on to questions. Yeah,
lovely. Ray, I'm worried I won't find the right job for me soon. Within that, I would say get super clear about what that right job is, because sometimes it can be, you know, I need the right legal job. It could be like finding a needle in a haystack. So write down 20 things, because you need to get clear about what is it that you're looking for in that job. Have you got a list of like 20 things that would feel really exciting to you? Because when you can kind of connect with that, it becomes much easier to find as a first thing. And then second thing, around a reframe, I'm worried I won't find the right job for me. I'm worried I won't find the right job for me. I know the right job. I'm just trying to, because what's the belief behind that? Why do you think you won't find the right job? So again, it's creating the facts around the right job, getting clear about what it is that you're asking for, and reframing to, I know I can find the right job for me. Once I get clear, the right job will be easier to find for me. So I hope that helps. Hafsa, am I being productive enough? That's a question. So what's your belief around that? Is it that I'm not being productive enough? If you could clarify. Sana, I'm falling behind. I can't keep up with the pace that everyone's going. Okay. I don't know if you know, Sihana, there's a, we talk about it in business quite a lot in terms of, you know, racehorses. See racehorses, and they have the blocks. I can't remember the official term for them, but they can't look at the other horses. And the reason for that is when you start looking around, you become slower and you don't get to the finish line. So within that is forgetting what everyone else is doing and just focusing on yourself. So I can't keep up with the pace everyone's going. I know when I focus on myself, I can pick up the pace of the work that I'm doing. When I focus on myself, I pick up the pace of the work that I'm doing. Just focus on your race, not anybody else's. Rain, thank you, Zara. Thank you so much. Yeah, Zina, do we want to?
Yeah, Brill, thank you so much for that. We've got about 15 minutes left. So if anybody's got any particular questions that they want to ask Lulu about any of the content today, or just generally any questions, and similarly, if you've got any questions kind of linking the personal development stuff to the careers in law, then obviously Lulu's got her background, which is obviously outlined. And if I can answer any of those, then obviously I'd be happy to do so. Whilst you guys are pondering those questions, I had a question for Lulu, if that's okay, because as you said, lawyers like to ask questions.
Yeah.
What do you think you would have done differently, or how would your legal career have looked differently if you had got this kind of coaching knowledge and personal development stuff that you do now?
I think for me, I was climbing the ranks, as it were. I was climbing the ranks in my firm that I worked for, and actually, you know, what was happening within the dynamics, the power dynamics of the firm was quite negative at the time, and you know, dealing with, particularly in criminal defence, you'll know, you're dealing with quite toxic situations outside of the workplace, and we were really like great team, really supportive, and somewhere that changed, and that became too difficult for me to navigate within a management structure that had become quite toxic, and then dealing with clients' problems all day long, and I became kind of squeezed in the middle of that, and very lost within that. So I would have navigated that very difficult time for me professionally. You know, I was on track for partnership. I was interviewed for partnership. I didn't get it. I'd already started a business. They didn't know that. So I was kind of already on my way out. But I would have navigated that much better and actually been much clearer about what it is that I wanted, instead of potentially, you know, blaming on the situation. It was kind of like the situation was running away with me, and I was becoming quite downtrodden about it. Instead of really being able to connect with myself and deal with it. Yeah.
I think that's fascinating. And also just the courage it takes to leave a profession like the one that you were in, because it's so easy to become so entrenched within the system. And it's almost like when you're in it for so long, it can feel really difficult to leave, or try something new, or have that courage. So I've got a lot of respect for that as somebody that is constantly keeping my fingers in lots of different pies and still figuring out what I'm doing, which actually I like that variety, but no, it's inspirational to see that others have done it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and it's, you know, it's just so important in a job like a lawyer, and I think, you know, and that's why it's great what you're doing here. You know, nobody tells you when you start out that you are dealing with problems all day. You're dealing with other people and their problems and situations all day long. That can leave you very little time to deal with your own. You don't make the time to do it, and then things can get out of control. They can spiral out of control, and then you know, and I found myself in a really difficult situation actually of leaving a job that I had loved, that I no longer did, and having to pay my bills and to do the internal work to get myself where I needed to go, and it wasn't an easy space actually. So yeah, that's why.
Yeah. But I don't think any questions are popping through, so I think I'm gonna. Oh, somebody has written a question. Sorry, I missed that. Ashley, although you can choose to spend your time with people that radiate positivity instead of drain your energy, how would you handle a negative workplace colleague that you have to work with? To what you just said.
Handled that very well when it went that way. Yeah, it's to really, I might need more specifics with that, is to really, how to put that? Really look at, and the way that I tend to deal with my life, my business these days, is to really check in. What's this person trying to teach me? What is this person trying to show me about myself? What can I learn? What can I learn here? And yeah, you don't always have a choice when you're in the workplace. So, you know, that from a personal development perspective, you know, from a professional perspective is, you know, if it's really causing a difficulty, is to speak to someone about it.
Agreed. Cool. And from Ross, a more distant worry I've had about the profession, specifically criminal defence law, which is what I'm interested in, is getting too emotionally invested in cases and the people involved. I was just wondering whether you have any experience with that yourselves and how you deal with it. That's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
Lulu, do you want to go on that one first? Or I'll go. So Ross, I mean, that's something that I can really resonate with. And I think it really depends on your personality. One thing that I always found was that you'd get different types of lawyers. Some lawyers that were just really great at being quite black and white, doing the job, doing it well, doing what needed to be done. And then kind of other lawyers, probably more like myself, that was quite involved with the human element of things. And it's not something that I regret or don't like about myself, because I actually do think there needs to be a level of humanity and compassion when you're dealing with your cases and your clients. And I don't think you can do a field like criminal defense without having that level of empathy or humanity. But there's a really fine line where you've got to try and retain that and also not transgress into this space where you're just constantly feeling bogged down by how sad or depressing or difficult things can be. One thing that I personally struggled with when I was doing more crime, and even now to an extent, is just the frustrations with the wider system and that constant feeling of injustice. Things aren't fair. That wasn't a fair result. You know, this wasn't a right decision. But the reality is that on a micro level, on a macro level, we can't change the system overnight. But in that one case, you can make a difference and an impact to that one person, even if you don't get the right result in court. How you manage that client's family, how you manage that conference with that client, how you speak to that client, how you treat that client. It's really about just always, all I'd say is always retain your compassion and your humanity. Never lose that at all. Don't ever make it be a tick box job, because I don't think it's a job that can be done in that way, especially in crime. But also find a way of putting things in boxes when they need to be put in boxes. When you come home, that's your time with your family, and just trying to kind of create that balance. And I think it's something that comes with time and practice, but quite early on, it can be quite draining, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know if your experience was any different.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the human, compassionate side as well. And, you know, I identify myself as empathetic, which is a gift and a curse at the same time, as I often say. Yeah, and definitely led with compassion. But what I would say, that you know, particularly in the US, they're a bit ahead of the game with this kind of stuff. There's a thing there called compassion fatigue, which is a real thing. And I was definitely compassionately fatigued by the end of that. So again, whilst my compassion never went for my clients, I could certainly feel it starting to dwindle at the end of the last couple of years. And that's because I wasn't taking care of myself and burnt myself out. And we store emotions in the body, and particularly if you're, you know, empathetic and you really connect with people on that level, we really have you know, and you're in it for the long haul and the long term, as it were, is we have a duty really to process those emotions and not shut them down, because we can shut them down within ourselves, because what we're dealing with every day. Again, yoga, all of that stuff, we store emotions in the body. So the more you move your body and have your releases for yourself, the more important it is. But, you know, those professions need, you know, empathetic people and the human, and not the tick box. So don't let it put you off. Just really look after yourself in the process, because that was, again, a mistake that I made, that I didn't look after myself enough and didn't realise actually how emotionally invested I was when other people weren't really, you know. But it's a massive gift with clients, because you can kind of, and Zina, I don't know if you've found that, you could really just give them what they needed.
Yeah, and instantly relate, and they feel like you're not just their lawyer, but they've got at least a bit of an ally in a system, which can feel really, really alienating. Brill. Okay, we've got a last couple of questions. Do you recommend any books or podcasts on confidence?
Yeah, there's a book called The Confidence Code, which is particularly about women in confidence, because it is something that comes up a lot for women. And this actually is on my desk. The Confidence Code is quite heavy in terms of statistics, that kind of stuff. There's also Like She Owns the Place, which is by Cara Labaya, Unlock the Secrets of Lasting Confidence, which is a bit more fun. It's a bit more of a lighter read when you're studying. And you probably don't want more facts and figures. You want tangible things. Then I would definitely recommend that.
Brill. One of the podcasts I like, I don't know if you ever listened to it, Lulu, is Jay Shetty. It's not necessarily on confidence, but it's got quite a lot of interesting stuff on mindset and just growth and development and stuff like that. Some of it can border, I mean, I like fluff, but some people don't like fluff. So it just depends how much fluffiness that you like. But I quite like Jay Shetty, for anybody that's interested.
Yeah. I'm going to podcast then.
Yeah. Was there an influential person you met that helped you to get where you are?
What, in the legal profession, or?
I'm not sure. Tell us about any influential people you've met on your journey, if there's anybody that stands out.
Certainly in business, I've deliberately sought out those influential people and been mentored and supported by them, you know, and invested in my personal development growth massively. And in terms of the legal profession, I don't know, was there anyone influential? I'll tell you what I did do, and this is a big tip in terms of, and I used to say this when trainees used to come in and work with us and stuff, is, and I know it could sound a little bit, is as I said, I had my entire career for 11 years at the same firm. I started on work experience. I was interviewed for partnership before I left. I didn't get that because I was too much of a voice to fit into that partnership model, and that's a whole different story. But what I did do very early on is I made tea for all the partners in that firm when I was on work experience, and before I had an official training contract, and I got to know all of them by name and that they knew me. And I would go into their office and say, can I help you with anything? What's this? What's going on there? How can I help you? How can I help you? How can I help you? And always, and I bring that energy to my business as well, with what have I got to give? Instead of what is it that I can take, what is it that and to get out there and help people. So when I started at the law firm, I went in and helped the partners, and they all knew me by name from day one, which is why I climbed the ranks throughout that decade. So if you don't know influential people, get to know them. Four people, there's only 4 degrees of separation worldwide. There's only 4 degrees of separation. So if there's someone you want to know, you know someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone, go and get to know them. And it's so much easier now with social media, LinkedIn.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Lulu. I'm going to draw the session to the close. It's the first one that we've actually finished on time, so I'm so grateful. You were right about being spot on with your timing. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on the session today. I hope that you found it useful. No doubt that you did. I'm really pleased that it was quite high-level stuff that I certainly hadn't come across some of it before. And I really hope that you've had some takeaway tips and techniques from Lulu, and we'll try and implement those on your journeys into law. I'm just going to put a feedback form into the chat box. So please take a couple of minutes to fill that in, if I can actually learn how to copy and paste into this thing. Has that gone through? No, it hasn't. I'm using somebody else's laptop, so it's a bit annoying. Form, if you could just, I know that some of you have done it for previous sessions. I'm asking for it for each session just so we can learn more about what you like, what's working, and again, ideas for future sessions. And also it's helpful for me, and no doubt Lulu I'll share with her too. And also the session next week is going to be on tick box diversity and exclusion in law exposed. So it's going to be a full and frank conversation about some of the things that some of us sometimes feel like we can't speak about, but we're going to speak about them. So I'll let you know about the details for that. Look out for that. Really, really pleased. Thank you so much, Lulu. Really, really grateful. And thank you, everybody, and take care and stay safe.
Yeah. Good luck with everybody, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Cheers. Thanks so much, Lulu.
Thanks so much. Good luck.
Take care. Bye-bye.